So the pain is the beautiful part. It's the beautiful part. So I don't know if you've ever been through pain before in your life. I don't know if I have only humans listening here today. But the pain is the beautiful part. So let me tell you how appreciative I am of the pain, and I'm going to tell you about it. Um, I went through the most difficult thing I've ever gone through in my life. And guys, I've been through things and stuff. I mean, I used to be a drug addict. I've been through the stuff and the things, and there was nothing that brought me pain like finding out that my husband had been cheating and all these things. Like, it was so painful, but because it happened, I'm going to tell you all the goodness that came from it. So I had been studying the Christ letters. I've always been super, 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 super spiritual, like little child spiritual, see things, hear things. It was me. It's built into me. And a good friend of mine sent me something the other day, and he asked what my life path number was. I'd never even heard of this before. And turns out I'm an 11. And so I looked it up. And what a confirmation it was. Because basically it's just saying that you're a super, super spiritual person, and that if you're not using your gifts, it causes chaos in your life. So I'm going to give you two stories. We're going to go back to the husband thing in a minute here and what a blessing that was. But I'm going to go back a little bit farther. This is maybe 18, 20 years ago. So this was before I was attuned to my spiritual gifts. So I knew that there was things, I would just know things. I could pray for things, they would immediately happen, that type of thing. But I didn't understand how it was all working, why it was working. So I didn't really have a handle on it. And I was born into a very religious upbringing, not spiritual, religious. Like, we're going to church twice on Sundays, and do not miss a week, never. And we had to drive 45 minutes into the city. We'd go in for Sunday morning service, then we'd hang out. We'd go for lunch, we'd go to museums, or we'd go hang out at friends' houses or do whatever, so that we could stay and go to a service again in the evening. Like this was what I grew up as. So I was very indoctrinated into the dogma. And so I saw my gifts as this kind of freaky thing, like, I don't know if I should accept these gifts. What if they're evil? Because I'd been told all of our gifts, all these things can be evil, except that it's funny because, if you're in the church and you're doing them, then all of a sudden you're a prophetic. But if you're not in the church and you're doing it, then you're a evil devil worshiper. Slight hypocrisy there. But anyways, so I was afraid of my gifts. And there was a period of time when my children were really little and I was living in this one house, which used to be the parishioners' house, that all of these pictures we would be taking, all of them would have orbs in it, like all of them. And I could feel them there, and I knew that they were there, and they would freak me out. They would totally freak me out, because at that point, like now, no big deal. If orb goes in my room, perfect, let's communicate. What are you doing here? I could figure it out. But back then, that was not the case, and I was getting bad vibes from these things. Like, I was afraid, but this is my fear manifesting, right? So they weren't bad vibes. It was my fear manifesting. So, I mean, it was bad vibes, but it was my own fault. It was my own creation. So anyways, 20 years ago, I get freaked out, and so I pray it away. I was like, I want this gone. I don't want any of this anymore. Take it away from me. And it left. And it was the most horrible thing that could have ever happened. I immediately felt empty. Like emptiness, like, this thing has been taken away from me, but I asked for it to be taken away from me. But it had been such a gift. Anyways, years go by. And so now I'm feeling like a part of me is missing. I'm feeling like a part of me is missing, and I'm seeking and doing everything to get this back now, to get this part of me back. And so one day I go out into a field, and I had seen this lady. She was talking about, so this is years that have gone by now, and she's talking about the Christ letters, and so anyways, she's the first woman who introduced me to this, and so then I start reading it, and I read it, and I'm like, oh yes, this is the truth. But then I see that this woman, is talking about how great they are, but she's not actually following these letters, which there is no higher truth than those letters. So I'm not going to read them and then move on to something else. No, these are the truth. So from studying those and that, but so anyways, so this woman who introduces me to the Christ letters tells me to do something, to go out into a field and yell like that I command that my angelic mantle be returned to me, or like something like that, and yell this out in a field. Something along those lines. Weird, but I'm out walking my dogs in the middle of nowhere, so I do it. Immediate results. Immediately I felt something come to me. I don't know what it was. It was almost too much, and it felt like it maybe wasn't meant for me. Wasn't supposed to come to me. Anyways, maybe this sounds very confusing, but I'm not trying to confuse you guys. Let me flash back to about 10 years ago. So I've gone through this dry spell. Nothing, like I'm not, I think at that time I was taking the kids to church still. There's no spiritual life in these churches anymore. There's judgment. They're not preaching the truth. There's no spiritual life. There's no spiritual teachings that are actually beneficial to the people anymore in churches, unless, of course, the pastor is enlightened and he has higher knowledge and higher wisdom and information. Then, of course, there's a spiritual life in his messages. But most of them, that is not the case. 98% of churches, that is not the case these days. There's no spiritual life in them. So I tapered off going to church after a while, because it was kind of like, it just felt like pointless to me. I didn't feel better when I left. I didn't feel better before. It was literally doing nothing for me, except I was going and listening to judgments, to how judgmental the church was, which is the opposite of the truth. So taper off going to church, and I see that there's this course coming up, and I don't know much about it, but it's some psychic woman that's coming, and she's teaching us how to tap into our gifts. And I felt so strongly compelled that I needed to go to this, that I had to go to this. So I went to it. That was the beginning of changing things. I realized, like, oh wow, I can easily get messages for people, all of these things, how she just basically gave us the opportunity to tap into these gifts. And it was an amazing experience, and things changed. But had I not had the suffering and the pain of, I asked for this thing to leave and it left, and there was immediate regret, I guess that would be one of the few times I really felt a lot of regret. But I see now, had that not happened, I wouldn't have been seeking. And so very likely I would have continued along the same path that I was doing and not ended up at that workshop. Because when I signed up for it, I was still in the dogma, and I was afraid that I was doing something that was evil, that was against God. I thought that there was going to be punishment. Because as much as the Christian church tries to tell you, oh, you have a God of love, no, they do not worship a God of love. They worship a God of punishment. Because if you don't do exactly what he says, you're punished and you're going to hell for eternity. These people are not only wrong, but because they worship a God like that, if you worship a God like that, you are going to have miserable things in your life happen, because you believe that you are going to be punished, and your beliefs become manifested in this world. So we wonder why our world is, has war and has chaos. Well, it's because we worship gods that believes that we believe our God hates our enemies. And so our God wants to smite our enemies. And so because we worship these gods that we believe hate people, the same people that we hate, conveniently, the same people that this God also created, so God's own children, but we believe he hates those ones and he likes these ones. Like, because we worship gods like this, this is why our world is at war and has chaos. It is because of the religious dogma that our world is in turmoil and at war. This is why this needs to end. But anyways, onto the topic of pain. Had I not been going through that pain at that time, that loss, that feeling of, oh, I need this connection back, I would have never ended up going to this course. I wouldn't have ended up seeking out what I'm doing now. So that pain of that regret that I had, that pain, led to expansiveness, to more growth, to better than what I had. It allowed me to understand my gifts. And when you understand them, then you're not afraid of them anymore. And you see them as what they truly are, a gift. And if somebody gives you a gift and you don't use it, let's say you go out and you get just the nicest, awesomest gift, and you go and you give it to somebody, and then they just like chuck it in their closet. Maybe they don't even unwrap it. How would you feel as the giver of that gift? You're like, man, I really thought that they would enjoy this. Like, it was a gift. It was something so beneficial to them, and they're not even unwrapping it. They're not even using it. You know, we're meant to use our gifts. So anyways, to force me to open up to my gifts, I closed them off, and then they came back and reopened. So back to the pain on the subject of my husband. So flash forward years and years later, and I'm now, suffering this pain of this new knowledge, this new information that I have been given, that he's a cheater, that he lies, that he's not, he's not faithful to me. So I'm going through this immense pain, and I am seeking any means to heal it, to make it better. I don't know if you have ever been betrayed before. I hope you haven't. But it is, for me anyways, some people don't care. Some people don't care. Each of us have our own thing. Somebody might think that it is not a big deal at all to them. But for those of us who really love with our hearts and are very loyal and caring and loving people, it's very harmful and very extremely hurtful. So we need to heal from this, right? Because we are then disillusioned of what was actually going on, and now we got to deal with that, and it just does all these things. But through that process of pain, so this was a couple separate instances. So I found out, the lie part of it, and even just this part of this lie, part of me finding out the truth, but only half of it, was so painful and so heavy and so damaging to me that I shut myself down. Like, locked myself in. I'm not going out. Oh, I got to go to the grocery store. I'm going to cry in the grocery store. I don't even want to leave my house. I don't want anything. So this is about 6 months of, wishing I was dead, because the life that I knew is now over. I knew I couldn't stay now with a man that I can't trust, that lies, that cheats. I couldn't do it, but I'm stuck. What do I do? We have 4 children. I worked and did what I did, but that was not enough to support myself. Like, he was the breadwinner. He did it all, and I homeschooled and took care of our kids. So I'm, feeling very trapped. So because of that, I'm like, okay, this needs to be repaired. This needs to be better, because I am telling you, I was in love with that man. I'm not anymore. It's not funny. Um, anyways, so I'm thinking, because I loved him so much, like it's like I worshipped this freaking man. I'm thinking it's repairable. Like I can get that back. That can come back. So I'm seeking any means possible to repair this. But I'm so angry. I'm so angry. Like I am just hateful towards him at this point. Like, how dare you do this? How dare you do this? Even though I had visions of him being with prostitutes and all of this, I had visions of all of this. I created it. I see this now. Anyways, so I'm so angry, but because I'm so angry, I'm needing to heal. So I tell him, and he was the type, very controlling, didn't want me to go and do things like, the type of partner that, maybe you don't, I hope you don't, that, I was part of the Splurge group, so it's a group of ladies, only women, and we would meet once a month, and it was just good, fun, and no, well, he didn't like me going out, there was always something, I would have to deal with him when I would get back. It would make it so that it wasn't even worth going out, that I would just like stay home and be like, okay, screw it, I'm not doing anything, because I would have to deal with him being mad or accusing me of whatever. It was just such a nightmare. So I had really stopped, doing a lot of things. We had mutual friends, so I, would hang out with them, and that was always fine. But he never liked any of my friends, like tried to distance me from my friends as much as possible. And I allowed this. And I didn't really see the extremity of it because I was in love with him. And so I just, was happy to be with him and did whatever made him happy, to the detriment of my own being. And, that builds up resentment over time. Oh, indeed. But anyways, so I'm now to the point where I don't care. I'm leaving and I'm going to go heal. So I tell him, hey, I'm going to the cabin. I'm leaving. I don't know when I'm coming back. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, how long are you going for? I don't know. 3 weeks, 2 weeks, a month. I'll come back when I come back. And I was so serious, and I was so at the end of my ropes. And he's wanting things to get better too. Like, he's wanting forgiveness for this, that he allowed me to go. That was the start. That was the start of all of it. I went, and there's no cell service up there, so I didn't have to talk to him while I was up there. And I intensively healed. I would highly recommend it. Go to a retreat. Go take time by yourself. Being by yourself changes things in an insurmountable way. You have no idea. Surrounding yourself with only positive energy, with only your energy, and focusing intentionally on healing and letting go of the low vibrational energies that are within your energetic system is the most beneficial thing you can do. It will change your belief system, and it will change your world, and it will change your life. It will change your reality, your visible reality. So I go up there and I find enlightenment, actual beautiful enlightenment. And I am on cloud 10 million. And this is the most wonderful thing. And I was told many things. I do believe I could have healed that relationship if I could have maintained that illumination that I had at that time. But considering the environment that I was coming home to, it lasted several days potently. But then the energies there in the home did not rise up to meet me. I allowed them to go back down. But I still had this knowledge, I still had this information, but I wasn't living at that highest vibe state because it just felt like it wasn't possible in my environment. So I don't know if you know people who talk bad about other people, or always like they call names to people, they insult what people are doing and how they look. Like there's just that type of low emission of vibrations constantly, but it is taxing and draining on your energetic system and very difficult to maintain those high vibrations when all of the other energies that are in your environment are so low vibrational. It's very hard to maintain that. So it's summertime and me and my girls are out jumping on the trampoline in the backyard, and it's hot, so I take my hoodie and I tie it around my waist. Anyways, we're done. We come inside, and I go to my room to go meditate. Now, of course, I am who I am. So what I do for my clients, I'm constantly doing it for myself. So I'm going to take any emotion that I have and I'm going to regress it back. I'm going to take it back to the start of it and I'm going to heal it. So I come in and I'm meditating and I notice that there's this tension, this pressure around my midsection. So if ever I was to feel that, any tension or tightness in my body and I'm meditating, well, I'm going to tune into it. I'm going to ask it why it's there and I'm going to, let it go, follow it back and heal it. So this is what I'm attempting to do here with this pressure that's around my midsection. And it's several minutes, like, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes that I'm laying there and I'm feeling that pressure and I'm trying to follow that feeling back to the beginning, follow it back, and I can't do it. It's not happening. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, this has never happened to me before, right? You regress back. My mind is going somewhere. It's going somewhere back. And there was no answer. So I'm like, what the heck? So I open my eyes and I realize that I have that hoodie tied around my waist. And so it is the hoodie that is tied around my waist that is creating all this pressure on my midsection. So of course, this is not some emotional thing. There's nothing that I needed to heal. So anyways, I start laughing. And so my daughter comes down the hallway and she comes into the room and she's like, what are you laughing about? And I was like, oh, well, and then I told her the story. And so she's laughing because she thought that was funny. And she says to me, yep, sometimes it's in your environment. And that hit me like a ton of bricks, that I realized, because this whole time I'm like, I can overcome this, I can fix this somehow. I can get over this betrayal and this lies and this deceit, and I can fix it somehow. And her saying this to me made me realize, no, you know what? Like, sometimes it's your environment. And yes, that's an environment that you created however long ago through your beliefs and through what you thought you wanted. But sometimes you outgrow it and you can't take it for 1 minute longer. You'll know what I'm talking about if you are on this spiritual journey and you've started to wake up and started to realize, like, oh man, like these negative low vibes around me are seriously affecting my life. And you're seeing, the people in your life being negative or hateful or judgmental, and you're not that way anymore because you woke up. You can't take it. And staying, it is so difficult to do. So the day when I realized, like, no, I can't take this for 1 moment longer. Because you'll know when you'll know, and not a second before. You'll know when you know, And not 1 second before. If you are going through something right now and you need to make a decision, or you're like, oh, what am I going to do? And I don't know what to do. And should I do this? Should I do that? You'll know when you know, and you're going to know. And the divine timing is just going to be perfect. You're just going to know. And so when I knew, when I found out this day, when I made my decision this day, when it just came to me of that's it, you're done, I was done. And staying in that house, I think I had to stay there for maybe another couple weeks or week, or however, maybe it was even a month. I don't know. However long it was till I could leave. I can't imagine being in that position and not being able to go. You have to make your exit. And it's difficult. But let me tell you. So from that first experience of going to the cabin, finding this enlightenment, I then was like, no, I need this. My soul needs this. And I went several more times that year. I think I only went for a week or 10 days at a time when I would go. But it was needed and it was necessary. And so I guess my point in this is, had I not had the most painful experience I could have possibly ever endured, on the opposite spectrum of it, I had the most blessed and wonderful experience that I have ever encountered in my life. So the more painful, the more blessed you can be on the other side, but only when there's healing. And it's only you that can do it. It's only you that can get this growth. So I have a friend, he messaged me this morning saying, oh, he's having a hard time, letting this go and letting that go, bringing back this old trauma from his relationships into his life. And so anytime that he meets somebody new, he's got this fear that people treat him bad, and then these people have been treating him bad, and he's attracting it into his life, and he's like, oh, I just can't stop. It's so hard. And it is, because we have to see the blessing in those painful experiences. We have to learn the lesson, or it will continue to repeat. So the pain, only if you use it properly, as it was meant, can be your biggest blessing. So let's say that you're going through pain now. So I'll give you another example. Over the last year, I'm not officially, paperwork's not done yet, divorced, but I've been away from him for a year and a half now, living in a different country. And so over the past, year and a half, there has been now 3 incidences that I can think of that were all done intentionally to rile me up, just an intentional, oh, I can get her this way, because he can, he doesn't pay me a penny, he doesn't do anything, but he still tries to control me. In these little ways. And so, but this has only happened a couple times over this year and a half. And so it really upset me. So when I left, oh man, I'm on cloud 10 million. I'm generally on that cloud. But then I don't even remember what happened, but he called and upset me. And then this upset lasted for 2 days. And I was so pissed, how dare you take me off of my cloud. And at the same time, I'm also concerned, because I'm like, I don't want to be putting out any negative energy, so I don't want to be in this state. So I'm, extra mad that you've thrown me off of this, because now I'm, projecting out bad things, and I'm mad that I'm projecting out bad things, so I'm projecting out more. Anyways, it only lasted 2 days. And then there was this massive upliftment that came. I thought I was on cloud 10 million. Well, after this, I was on cloud 20 million. upon realizing this, I realized I need to be thankful immediately when there's something negative that's happening. So this is like an example of yesterday that I went to this thing. There's a bunch of low vibe people there. I'm overhearing this conversation. They're very low vibe people. Anyways, their conversation made me laugh. If I was somebody other than myself, it might have upset. It might have upset somebody else had they heard it, but it made me laugh, and it was confirmation for me that I'm making all of the right decisions. And these negative things now they're not allowed in my life, so they're not negative. They're immediately positive. Someone else could have taken what they overheard as something negative. But no, what a positive and wonderful thing. So if you can be in it, so here's my example. So 3 times over that year. So the second time when it happened, I was immediately thankful. I was pissed. I was so annoyed, but I was immediately just sending out thanks, knowing, yes, this is going to cause so much growth. I'm so thankful for this. I'm so thankful for this. I'm so thankful for this. And that attitude changes it. It immediately transmutes the energy from negative to positive. It benefits you. Being in that negative mindset is doing nothing beneficial for you, not even for 1-2 seconds, unless there's something that you need to learn from it. So there's just only good that comes from the pain. But if you've gone through a painful process and you haven't forgiven the person and you're still resentful towards them and you still are blaming, then you're in victim mode. You're not going to heal. And you think that you're punishing, that other person by, well, if I forgive this person, then I'm letting them off the hook. You know what? That's true. But when you forgive that person, you're actually letting yourself off the hook, because think about how much energy that you are wasting, that you're giving. You're giving them. You're giving them your gift of energy by thinking about them so much. By being resentful. What a gift you could give to yourself by clearing their energy completely out of your energy system and just living in a high vibe state. Living in the high vibes. So the pain is the beautiful part. And you don't want to romanticize this pain. I know some people do that. Man, I've witnessed that. Someone who's in a depression and they're just romanticizing it. This is not what I'm talking about. This is not loving the low vibe states that you're in. This is loving what comes from it. So being so thankful. So let's say that you have recently gone through something that was so painful. Just imagine yourself sending heavenly love to yourself. Just imagine you, close your eyes, imagine yourself sitting on a bench and that this beautiful raining down of divine, brilliant, beautiful white light is just melting through your body, raining down on you and filling you up with pure love and letting you know all is well. Everything's okay. Everything's going to be better than it was before. There's purpose in this. It's teaching you something. And you should be able to be thankful already, anticipatory thankfulness for the outcome, whatever it is that's going to come from this. So if you've been going through something painful, I love you and I'm so sorry and I feel you. I've been there. I felt like my life was over. It was. The life that I knew was literally over. But then there's so much goodness on the other side of it when you allow it. So I guess that's all that we got here for today. So the pain is the beautiful part, because that suffering leads to all the goodness that there is in the world. So if you're going through a difficult time, I love you. I'm here for you. I have so many podcasts and that mental cleanse series that can help. Just don't fall asleep when you're listening to it. Sit up in a chair and do it as therapy. Like, sit there and this is my therapy time, and work through your stuff. Anyways, I love you guys. Thanks for all your love and support. You guys are wonderful. I'll see you guys in the next one.